Did you click on this video because you are trying to read the KJV but are finding it really confusing, like it's a whole other language? Well, stick around because in this video I'm going to give you some top key tips to help you untangle the KJV language and help you hopefully comprehend it much easier, because there are some little tricks that I think can help. So for context, I've been reading the KJV now for about 5 years. Yes, it was very hard at first. Even after having been quite well versed studying similar early modern English texts like Shakespeare since the age of like 11, I had to read and analyse texts like Othello, Macbeth and all this stuff. And yeah, I never felt it got much easier, but after a few years of consistently reading the KJV and actually finding patterns that have helped me, I think I'm finally in a place where I'm getting the hang of it. And if you follow along in my women's Bible studies here on YouTube, you'll know I do all my studying from the KJV. And I've had a few people recently in the comments asking me how I understand the KJV. And it made me reflect on how far I've actually come with comprehension, not just exegesis of the text, but actually comprehending the language. So I thought I'd gather my top tips and put them together in a video for you in the hopes that it will help you untangle and unlock this early English code, because it can really feel like another language while reading. So it is going to be like a little lesson. We're going to do some technical Englishy things in here, but I'll try and make it really manageable. And the 3 areas we're going to look at: pronouns and verbs, vocabulary and sentence structures as well, because those are kind of the main things that I found that differ from modern English, and that can really throw us off when reading. And then we'll go through some verses as well that sound complicated at first, and we can unravel them together to help with comprehension. So let's get right into it. All right, your first cheat code are pronouns, but only you and your. The rest are not affected, like him, her, she, they, all that is pretty much the same. It's just you and your that have a slight difference. So in modern English, we would just use you for addressing both one person individually and 2 or more people, a group. So we just say you for everyone, you individual, you group, you. Well, early English and the KJV are different. Now, yes, you might think, oh, that's so confusing already, I don't want to keep going. But actually, it's very important because it actually gives us much more detail, and it tells us who the author is addressing, which I'll show an example in a minute. But the general rule is, if you see ye, you, or your, know that it's actually referring to a group, more than one person. But if you see thou, thee, thy, or thine, it's talking to one person only. So that's quite easy to remember, right? So a general you, your is multiple people. If you see the pronoun that starts with th, thou, thee, thy, thine, it's only one person. So let's look at example together and you can see what I mean. So let's turn to Luke 22, verses 31 and 32. And the Lord said, Simon, Simon, behold, Satan hath desired to have you, that he may sift you as wheat. But I have prayed for thee, that thy faith fail not. So this is a great sentence to analyze because it contains both you and thee and thy. So the you, in the first instance, says Satan has desired to have you. Although he's saying Simon, Simon, you reading this, you'd think, oh, he means Satan desires to have Simon, right? Actually, no. The KJV gives us that clue. Because it's a you, it's talking about more than one person. What Jesus is actually saying here is, Simon, Simon, Satan wants all of you, disciples basically. All of you, not just Simon. And this is backed up. If I looked in the interlinear, I do love an interlinear, and that translates word for word from the original Greek. And this word you, if you look at it in the interlinear, has a different word for you. It actually is imas, which means all of you. So it does actually mean multiple, all of you, not just one single you. And this is where the KJV really shines, because it helps distinguish that difference. If you know what you're looking for, of course. If you didn't know that you means plural, you wouldn't know that. So it's really important that you do study and make sure you're aware of the language of the early English, because it is different. I did have a look at other translations to see how they handle this, and it is interesting that not all translations have made this distinction clear. So good examples are actually the NIV, that says all of you. The Amplified has all of before you in brackets. And the NLT has each of you. So it would read, behold, Satan has desired to have all of you, each of you, etc. So it's making it clear that he's not talking about just Simon. But the ESV, the NKJV, NASB, they all just say you, which when we're reading it in modern English does sound like it's saying Satan wants Simon only, but it's not. It's actually he wants all of them. So I feel like this is a really important distinction to note. Okay, so in summary, when you see you or your, it's more than one person. So what he's actually saying here, if we were to put it more modern translation, it would be, Simon, Simon, behold, Satan has desired to have all of you, that he may sift all of you as wheat. But I have prayed for thee, Simon, I've prayed for thee, you, one you, that thy faith, your faith, Simon, fail not. And so, because in the second part of the sentence he says, I prayed for thee, that thy faith fail not, he is saying, I've prayed for you, Simon, that your faith won't fail. So that shows a big difference in the KJV of who Jesus is talking to. And this is really important. And this is where I feel the KJV really shines, because it's clear as day who is being addressed. So Jesus is saying, Simon, Satan wants all of you, but I've prayed for you specifically that your faith won't fail. You specifically meaning Simon. Okay? So that's the first thing. Very simple cheat code, already will help your comprehension significantly when you're reading the text. You, your, multiple, thy, thine, single person. That will completely make clear who the message is being aimed at, whether it's being aimed at one person or multiple. Okay, so there we go. That was tip 1. The second tip I want to look at are verbs. So those are action or being words, so what an object or a person does. So tea is hot, the verb is hot, or a person is talking, me talking is the verb, all right? I'm sure you already knew that, but it's good to clarify what the meanings of things are. So when it comes to verbs, the KJV, this is kind of one of its little sparks, is it likes to add what I call a little bit of decor to these words, and that is putting eth or est at the end of them. Okay, and these little endings look odd, and personally they are the biggest stumbling block I have while trying to read aloud, because you're like you stumble over your tongue a little bit when you're speaking, but they're pretty straightforward to work out. Basically, if you say eth, E-T-H at the end, that's basically what we'd now write with an S. So like he makes is what we would say, but the KJV would say he maketh. So if we read he maketh, it means he makes, okay? And then EST tends to tag along with thou. So thou goest, you go. All right, so if you see EST, it's thou, thou goest, you go. Okay, so that's basically what those verbs are. If you see eth on the end, it's what we would normally have with an S. EST just usually has a thou in front of it. Now, if you see words like art or hast, it's basically just are and have. So art is are, hast is have. And then once you spot them, you can swap them out automatically. So it's like learning new vocabulary. Your brain will automatically go, when I see the word art, oh, it means are. And you kind of just get used to it. So I've put together a little list of what I feel like the most popular ones that you might see a lot, and I'll leave them on the screen for you. And basically you just need to try and memorize them, and that will get easier. I did it subconsciously without even trying to, just by reading it over and over again and being exposed to it. But if you want to get a head start, then try learning them and then you'll spot them a bit easier. So let's go through them. Art is are, hast is have. If you see wast or wert, that just means were. Had's, just had, got an extra ST on the end, just had. Shalt is shall. Wilt, will. Wouldest is just would. Shouldest is should. They're very similar, as you can see. Doest is do. Didst is did. Sayest is say. Spakest is spoke. Giveth, gives. Maketh, makes. Leadeth, leads, etc. So let's now read it in a script, and I'll then go through and exchange it for the modern word equivalent as well. So let's jump to Psalm 139, because that's a great example for a lot of these key words. And we'll look at verses 1 to 4. O Lord, thou hast searched me and known me. Thou knowest my downsitting and mine uprising. Thou understandest my thought afar off. Thou compassest my path and my lying down, and art acquainted with all my ways. For there is not a word in my tongue, but lo, O Lord, thou knowest it altogether. Okay, so let's now go through and just change those words out. Just the verbs. I'm not going to do all of them, the thee, thous and stuff, just the verbs now. Modernized version would sound something like, O Lord, you have searched me and known me. You know my sitting down. So my down sitting is just sitting down. We kind of swapped it over. Mine uprising is rising up. So just switch the words, but they mean the same. You understand my thought from afar. You surround my path and my laying down, and are acquainted with all my ways. For there is not a word on my tongue, but lo, O Lord, you know it altogether. So in general, the words are very similar, just the verbs sometimes have a different ending or just sound slightly different. So instead of have, hast, for example. But once you learn just a handful of these different words and the endings that they have, it kind of unlocks the code and you can understand it more as you're reading. So it's important to note here that nothing theological has changed, nothing whatsoever. It's just the verb forms, like hast, have, knowest, know, understandest, understand, art, etc. Those are the only things that are slightly different. But once you learn them, you'll spot them and you'll be able to flip them as you're reading. Okay, the next one is old vocabulary. Oof, okay, this is probably where people get tripped up the most. And this is where comprehension really matters here, because the words are sometimes the same as the words we use today, but they actually meant something completely different in 1611 when this was translated. So the good news is there aren't a million of them or even hundreds of them. It's just kind of a handful that come up often that we can just learn and just say, okay, in this context, this word actually means something else. So I've gone through and made a list of what I feel like some of the main ones that I came across, what we know them to mean and what the early English actually intended them to mean, so that we can actually understand and comprehend a little bit more accurately. So the first one we have is conversation. Very straightforward. Conversation, us talking, we're having a conversation. Yeah, that's what we understand it. Yeah, no, early English, that's not what it meant. What it actually meant is conduct or your manner of life, how you act. And the example is in Philippians 1:27, let your conversation be as it becometh the gospel of Christ. Is not let your conversation as you're talking be like the gospel of Christ. No, it's your conduct, how you behave, your actions. Let they be as the gospel. Yeah, see, that's a significant difference in meaning of that word, conversation, right? The next one is charity. So we know charity as mainly like a donation, to give to charity. It's still to help the needy. What it actually in early English was love, and not just any kind of love, but a selfless, godly love. And I believe that's where the charity came from, is to put others first, to sacrifice for someone else, to give up something to help someone. But we kind of take charity not to be as heavy as love is. Love is more than just, oh, here's a few coins, here's some tins of food. It's, I'm going to sacrifice, I'm going to give up something for your benefit because I love you the way God loves. And this is why this is the greatest commandment, 1 Corinthians 13:13. The greatest of these is charity. He's talking about his commandments. What's the greatest commandment? It's not giving to charity per se, it's love, that selfless, godly love. Okay, the next is prevent. This is another one that means very different. We understand prevent as to stop, to prevent, to stop, right? Whereas early English means to go before or to anticipate, to prevent. So for example, in Numbers 22:36, the Lord prevented Balaam. The Lord didn't stop Balaam, the Lord went before Balaam. So yeah, that's another one that is very different to our understanding. The next one, I feel like this next one is complete opposite of what we understand. So the word let means to allow for us. In early English, let can also mean hinder or restrain. So like in 2 Thessalonians 2:7, where it says, only he who now letteth will let until he be taken out of the way. And so it's talking about the restrainer. So he is restraining. So let me translate it. So he who now restrains will restrain until he's taken out of the way. So the restrainer will keep restraining until he's taken out of the way. It's not he will let. It's the actual opposite of let. Related to the word let, weirdly, is the word suffer. So for us, suffering means to endure pain. But in early English, suffer can also mean to allow or to permit or to let. But it also does mean suffer as well. So there are times where it will mean both. It depends on the context of what is being said. It's very clear whether it's saying to actually suffer, endure pain, or whether it means to permit. So an example where it would mean permit would be Psalm 89:33, nor suffer my faithfulness to fail. He's not saying to endure pain for faithfulness to fail. No, he's saying to nor allow my faithfulness to fail. Makes much more sense. So it's quite obvious when it means the modern word equivalent and when it means the early English equivalent. The next one we have is the word quick. Sometimes means fast, yes, but sometimes it means alive. Yeah, so in 2 Timothy 4:1, who shall judge the quick and the dead? He's not judging those who are fast and those who are dead. He's judging the alive and the dead. So yeah, there are times when it might mean actually quick, and there are times when it actually means alive. Yeah, so those are just some examples that I found where the meaning is or can be different to us, and it's important to know that so that it makes sense in the sentence. But there are also a few words that aren't even used anymore in modern English that are included in the KJV as well, that you will need to learn as part of your vocabulary. So you might see what, W-O-T, that means no. So in Exodus 32:1, what they wot not of, what they knew not of, okay? And there's word haply. Haply doesn't mean happily. I used to think that when I was reading it, and I was like, 1 minute, that doesn't make sense. Haply means perhaps. So in Acts 17:27, if haply they might feel after him, if perhaps they might feel after him. So yeah, those are just a few of the vocabulary words that do differ from us in modern English that we do need to be aware of if we're going to comprehend the KJV accurately. So let's now go to a passage together and we'll look at some of the vocabulary and try and translate it into modern English. So let's go to Luke 17 and we'll go to verses 7 to 10. I'm going to start from, and will not rather say unto him, make ready wherewith I may sup, and gird thyself, and serve me till I have eaten and drunken, and afterward thou shalt eat and drink? Doth he think that servant, because he did the things that were commanded him? I trow not. So likewise, when ye shall have done all those things which are commanded you, say, we are unprofitable servants, we have done that which our duty was to do. So let's go through some of those key words that are different to the modern English. So first of all, we have sup. Sup is eat. That could come from supper, because in England, some people do call their dinner supper, and that means food, basically, meal. So sup is eat. There is the word gird, which means to prepare. Trow is think. I trow not, I think not. Unprofitable servants means unworthy, not unprofitable that we know it means not gaining a profit. It means unworthy. So the modern version would be, but which of you having a servant ploughing or tending sheep will say to him when he comes from the field, come along now and sit down to eat? Won't you rather say, prepare my supper or my meal, get yourself ready and wait on me while I eat and drink? After that you may eat and drink. Will he thank the servant because he did what he was told to do? So you also, when you've done everything you were told to do, should say, we are unworthy servants, we have only done our duty. So do you see how just changing the words to what we understand them to be can just make everything flow a lot easier and make sense, right? So hopefully now you've got a lot of tools in the bank to help you untangle the KJV. I do have one more tool that I want to go through. This is what really gives the KJV its signature poetic flow, what makes it sound the way it does aside from the thee, thou, thines. But this is also what feels very backwards to us as modern English speakers and readers. So, modern English expects a sentence structure to be a subject, a verb, and an object. For example, the man is blessed. So the man is the subject, the verb is, and then the object or adjective is blessed. The man is blessed is our sentence structure. However, sometimes the KJV starts with the adjective, the describing word, or an adverb, like who, where, or, when, how, or an object, instead of a subject. So instead of putting the subject first, like the man, it puts everything else before it and puts the man at the end. For example, blessed is the man whose delight is in the Lord. Blessed is the man. Instead of the man is blessed, it said blessed is the man. And so the man is the subject. So it puts adjective first, blessed. The verb is subject, the man. And that's backwards to us, and that's what sounds kind of strange but also very poetic when you're reading it. So yeah, we're used to subject first, the man is blessed, and KJV tends to flip it, blessed is the man, subject at the end. I understand, like starting with an adjective like blessed emphasizes it, because you're going straight in with blessed instead of the man. You get in context more, saying, oh, blessed, we're talking about something being blessed. But it does feel backwards to us because we're just not used to that. All right, that's a lot shorter, that one, but that sentence structure flip can make things sound confusing, but you should still be able to comprehend what it's saying. It's just an extra cheat code to help you kind of figure out why it's so different, because sometimes we can't understand why it's so complicated because there's so many layers to it that are complicating it. At least 4 things that I've addressed in this video. Okay, so now that we've gone over the 4 cheat codes I'm giving you, there are many more if you want to go a lot more detailed, but I figured this is a great starting point. I want to read a few KJV verses with you and we can untangle them using everything we've learnt. So a verse I found that I want to go over that tackles a lot of these rules in one is the beautiful Psalm 23. So will you please read Psalm 23 with me? Only 6 verses, but it does hit quite a lot of the rules that we've covered, so we can go through it together and untangle it. And as we're reading, try and point out, if you want to go through it and have a pen or something, and highlight the things that are different. So whether it's the pronouns, you, your, thee, thine, whether it's the verbs, has it got an eth or an est at the end of it, or is it a completely different word for a verb? And look at the vocabulary. Is it different to what we're used to? And also the sentence structure. So if you want to just pick out one thing at a time as we're reading, you want to focus just on one thing, then just stick to one. If you're advanced and you want to do all 4 of them as we're reading, then do that. Maybe highlight them in different colours. So you've got 4 different colours and you can highlight all the things that are different. Okay, so let's go through it together. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table for me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Okay, if you need to pause and go back and go through it slowly, then please do. But let's go through it together and see what we can find. All right, so first of all, let's go through all the pronouns. So anytime there's a you or a thou or a thy or etc., etc. So the first pronoun we have is for thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. We have thou preparest a table for me, thou anointest my head. So we know that David is talking directly to one because it's thou and thy, and that one is to God because this is a psalm, a prayer to the Lord. So he's saying that you are with me, Lord. Not you all are with me. It's just God that he's referring to. His rod and his staff. God will prepare a table for him in the presence of his enemies, etc. Okay? Right. Did you get all those? Did I miss any? Probably. I'll make sure I have them correct on the screen, but yeah. Okay, the next one we're going to look at are the verbs. So anytime we've got a doing word that ends in eth or est, etc. Okay, so the first one is he maketh me to lie down. We've got maketh, we've got leadeth, restoreth, leadeth again, preparest, anointest. Yeah, those are the main ones. They're quite straightforward to understand because the words are very similar, fortunately. And then the vocabulary words, the words that actually have like slightly different meanings for us, I've picked out yea, Y-E-A, yea. For that, a lot of people are like, yeah, like that, like, yeah. That just means yes. So like, yes, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. So that's a yea. And my cup runneth over. Runneth is also a verb, but it also, my cup runneth over, I would say is a vocabulary thing because we don't say it like that. We would just say, my cup overflows rather than runneth over. This is kind of a combination of sentence. I put this in the sentence structure category, I shall not want, because those words do make sense to us, I shall not want, but we'd say, I have everything I need. That's kind of more natural flow to us. And he maketh me to lie down. We wouldn't have the to there. We would just say he makes me lie down in green pastures. And then similarly with thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. We probably wouldn't need the they. We'd just say your rod and your staff comfort me. So in a slightly more translated version of modern English, it might read, the Lord is my shepherd. I have everything I need. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yes, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. So he's changed from saying he, now he's speaking to him directly, you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table for me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. I don't think there were as many sentence flips in that one where it starts with an adjective instead of the subject. Unless I missed one, let me know. But yeah, we get the idea. We've gone through and we've picked out the things that make the KJV different to modern English. So as you can see, I'm just trying to break down what my brain starts to do when I read the KJV. And it kind of translates it in this way in my mind. So instead of reading I shall not want, my brain is going, oh yeah, it means I don't lack anything. So I'm kind of automatically translating in modern English. I don't know, maybe that's how you do it as well when you're speaking a foreign language. Do you kind of flip it in your head to translate it? Or do you just get it? I think everyone's different in that sense. I think that's why I find languages so hard, because I flip it in my head. I have to translate it in my brain. And that's what takes me longer. But over time, it does go in. You start to memorize the differences and the patterns, and hopefully it will help you comprehend the language. So those are my main tips for how to literally, technically untangle it. And I guess aside from the technical stuff of how the early English is structured and how vocabulary is used and things like that, which definitely can be studied to help you make better sense of it, as we've seen, I think other than that, my greatest advice is to just read it. Read the KJV every day until you start to recognize the patterns, the words, and the meaning in the language, and it will start to make more sense for you. And if it helps, you can read it alongside another translation to help you translate something if it really doesn't make sense until you start to pick it up. But don't be afraid of it, because I was at first. I was like, what does this even mean? But I had a goal that I wanted to read the KJV and study from it. And that's kind of what I've done. And I pushed through that awkwardness of I'm never going to understand this. And here I am, actually teaching my tips. So there you go, what a turnaround. I do think it's very easy to shy away from the KJV at first because it is overwhelming and there are so many other translations available. It's like, why do I need to suffer through it? But it is worth it, and it's a very special translation. So yeah, I'm at the point now where I read the KJV for leisure in everyday reading. Yeah, not just for studying, where I'm forced to slow down and reflect on exegesis and meaning. At first I was kind of reluctant to do that, and I just wanted to stick to easier translation for speed reading. But I was forced. The chronological Bible is in KJV, and so I kind of had no other choice but to speed read from the KJV. And I was actually pleasantly surprised that I was able to do it effectively. And I think doing that for almost a year, almost every day, really did make a difference in how I'm able to comprehend and how I was able to spot patterns in the differences in the language. And now I'm using this Bible, which is also a KJV, for daily reading and highlighting, as well as scripture writing from the KJV as well. So basically, the trick is just general exposure. So yeah, it really is about exposure to the language. If I knew then what I know now, I bet I would have done better in Shakespeare, to be honest with you. I think I probably would have. But anyway, we live and we learn. At least I'm using it to read the most important book in the world, even better. But yeah, ultimately, don't be afraid of the KJV. Don't be put off if it takes you a long time to grasp it. You can learn it, you can understand it. It is a beautiful, beautiful translation, and it's very rich. So yeah, just dive in. Use some of the tips I've taught you today. If it helps you, let me know. If you have any other tips that you want to share with people, please do put them in the comments. If you want a part 2, like go into even more advanced stuff, let me know and I can look into some more details. But yes, I do pray this has helped you, and hopefully as you get into the tips I share with you in this video, hopefully you'll comprehend the early English over time and you'll be reading this for leisure as well. So yeah, that's it for today. I pray this has been informative and helped you in reading of the KJV. Please do leave your thoughts, takeaways, comments in the section below, and remember, Jesus loves you. Lord willing, I'll speak to you soon, and until then, have a blessed day. Bye.